All right, try this again. All right, we're gonna try this again because there was like bugs in the system or something. It wasn't working. um, Hopefully this is better. Hopefully you can hear me this time around and things are running smoothly on your end. Um, Welcome out to another live episode of Positively Atheists. Today we're gonna be discussing why atheism just works better for most people. And let's be real here, honestly, and I've talked about this before. I feel like there are a lot more atheists than we realize. Now, in case you don't know, uh, the Pew study came out recently, a couple of years ago. I think it was like 3 or 4 years ago. For the first time in U.S. history, those who are non-religious exceeded uh, all other religious demographics in the United States, including Christianity, Muslim, and Catholicism and Judaism. These are people. Now, what this means is people who would identify previously for basically, if given the option of the major religions, people would check the box that says no religious affiliation. You know, on censuses or studies or um, other things like that. So this is what we call the religious nuns. In other words, no religious affiliation. Now, this may not seem like a big deal to some of you, but this is a huge deal. Uh, People are becoming less and less religious, and it is happening every day, progressively. In fact, the non-religious demographic in the United States, even, is not only the largest religious demographic, but it's also the fastest growing. So, and this is without missionaries. This is without uh, hierarchies. This is without all these things that religion uses to spread their messages. The non-religious message is growing rapidly. Now, depending on how you define that, that may or may not mean atheism is growing rapidly, right? Because if you ask most people who would consider themselves non-religious about their actual beliefs, it turns out a lot of them claim to have actual some religious beliefs built into them. So the thing about this is that just because someone is non-religious doesn't mean that they're necessarily an atheist. Now, you could be an atheist in word, but also not in practice. But the same is also true. You could also be an atheist in practice, but not in word. What I mean by this is a lot of people have kind of a misnomer about what it means to be an atheist, and it comes with a lot of baggage. I think it was Richard Dawkins said in his book. He tells a story about a girl who came out as an atheist, and her mom found out, and she called her and said, "Well, I understand not believing in a God, but an atheist." And the truth is, atheism carries with it some negative connotations that we have to get out of the way. Um, and atheism means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So a lot of people, while they might actually be atheists in practice, aren't actually atheists in word. So they won't ever call themselves an atheist. And this is because of these negative connotations. So when it comes down to figuring out how many atheists there actually are, this is actually a pretty difficult subject matter because it can be looked at a lot of different ways. Now, I'm of the belief that most people are atheists. I honestly believe probably 99.9% of the world are atheists, maybe 99%. Um, and I've mentioned this before. How do I know that? Well, the evidence that I personally believe the evidence that somebody's an atheist is you can look how they live their lives. um, if you are doing bad things, okay, that either means A, you believe in a God that doesn't care what you do, which is not most people, or B, you don't believe in the God you claim to believe in. Because if you if you ha- if you think in your mind that there is this deity that's with you 24/7, that's with you, building a relationship with you, who's watching you at all times, it's going to change your behavior. Now we know that some of the most atrocious crimes committed in humanity were done on by the in the sake of religion. Okay, we know this. We know that religion can be used to justify all types of behaviors, all types of actions, all types of language. It can be used to basically defend all kinds of things. Now the problem is that um, there is a mismatch. And I said this before in another live stream. If you believe that you have a police officer with you 24/7, okay, if watching you, standing next to you 24/7, well, are you going to commit any crimes? I would say no. I would say a person who truly believes that a police officer with them 24/7 is not going to commit crimes. In the same way, I believe that a person who truly believes that there is a God with them 24/7 is not going to commit sin. It's not going to do bad things. You're not going to steal, lie, cheat. You're not going to kill. You're not going to commit, take part in war. You're not going to do all these different things that some people who claim they believe in God the most tend to do. But yet they want you to believe that they believe in a God. And I personally just don't accept it. I don't accept that. I think most people are lying. Most people are lying to themselves. They don't believe in a God. They don't worship a God. They don't believe a God is real. If they did, they wouldn't do the things that they're doing. So, depending on how you define atheism, it can really change the metrics. So, in what I'm going to be discussing today are people who are accepting of their atheistic position, people who are being honest, who are like, I don't believe in a God. What do we know about people who don't believe in God, who call themselves atheists? Well, there are at least 10 different ways that atheists tend to do better than people who are not. The first one is happiness. Now, and I'm going to pull up a couple of articles. So, Scandinavian countries tend to be, let me see if I can get this side by side. Scandinavian countries tend to be the least religious countries of the Western world, and yet are consistently ranked highest in the polls. Let's see if I can pull this over here. Many factors go into such ratings like economics, life expectancy, healthcare, social safety nets, and the transparency of the government. But it's hard not to notice a potential correlation between and atheism and happiness. So we can see here, this is from livescience.com. The happiest countries in the world The happiest country in the world is famous for its butter cookies, Lego bricks, and fairy tale writer Hans Christian Andersen. It's Denmark, according to 2016 World Happiness Report. Denmark's top spot isn't exactly a surprise. The country ranked first in the 2013 World Happiness Report and third in 2015 report. In fact, most of the top 10 happiest countries have retained their spots from last year, although there has been some swapping of places, the new report said. Um, and you can actually see, I think they have a chart here of the happiest countries. Now, I want you to take a look at this list here. I don't know if you can see it very well, but it's true. Because we can actually do a side by side comparison of the different countries when it comes to their religious beliefs. And I'd be willing to bet that pretty much there's a direct correlation between the level of religiosity and the happiness of the citizens. Okay. And like I said, the United States is 13th on this list. Well, guess what? When it comes to religion, we're probably around the same thing. There are some very religious pockets of the United States. Not most, but there are some religious pockets. And we can see overall that religion has a major part to play in the level of happiness for people. The next thing is on the reasons why atheism is just better overall is atheists tend to have higher IQs. And this is, and I'm going to pull up a report here for this as well. Um, Intelligent people also tend to spend more time in school, which in turn leads to greater success professionally. This is from the Daily Mail. This was a study done, um, 63 scientific studies about religion and intelligence between 1928 and last year. So, what this report basically says is that there's actual direct connection between atheism and intelligence. People who are atheists tend to have higher IQs overall, and the opposite is also true. Now, this is both good news and bad news. It's good news because it's showing there's something there. It may not be direct correlation. It may not be direct. It may not be direct connection, but it's something there. Now, the downside to this, of course, is you can't really do much about your level of intelligence, right? You can't just suddenly become an atheist and decide that you're going to be more intelligent. But it shows that there's some type of connection. And I think that's interesting. Better jobs. This follows from the previous reason. More intelligent people tend to do better in the workplace. The same studies have shown higher level of IQs for atheists, also equated with getting higher level jobs and higher pay. So it may be that your atheism allows you to use a little more critical thinking, the skepticism in your thinking process, allows you to get better education, allows you to get better jobs and better promotions. That makes a lot of sense if you think about it. Now, the thing about better jobs, think about better experiences in a workplace. I think this has a lot to do with what happens in the workplace. If you've ever worked with a super religious person, you know that, let's be real here, they can be pretty annoying. And the most annoying, frustrating thing about working with religious people are the fact that they just don't seem to care that you don't care about their religion. So I've noticed that religious people I've worked with have no problems utilizing their positions of power, their positions of leadership in the company to push their narrative about religious beliefs. You know, so many companies, even now in this area, they'll have their holiday parties, but they will refuse to call them holiday parties. They insist that they call them Christmas parties. They will insist on talking about. And I went to a company party recently where the CEO was straight up like, "Hey, the reason for the season is for Christ. It's a Christian holiday and this kind of stuff." This is supposed to be at a secular company where it has nothing to do with religion. People don't go to work to want to be proselytized, to want to be preached at, and to want to be made to feel bad about them not believing in a particular religious belief system. In that room, there are probably some Jews, there are probably some Muslims. There's a big room full of a lot of people. There are probably a lot of atheists, but the lack of consideration for that to me was appalling. So yeah, maybe there's a direct correlation because the more likable you are, the greater chances you have of being successful in your company. And if you're a jerk, then the chances of you being successful is probably pretty slim. So yeah, better jobs makes a lot of sense. Next up, self-esteem and self-reliance. These are two sides of the same coin. Atheists are not being told that they are guilty and sinful, as is the case with many religious teachings. This leads to higher self-esteem and a feeling of control over life's events. as atheists, do not expect a deity to help them solve a problem. They will address it personally and directly. And the increased self-reliance can have a positive effect on their own lives, but also on the lives of others. When there's no will of life, reincarnation, heaven or hell, the responsibility for made choices lies with individuals. So here we see something interesting. Um, one of the problems with religion is that religion tends to start with the assumption that you are broken and need to be repaired, right? That you are in desperate need of a savior, some type of savior, whether it be Jesus, Muhammad, whatever. Um, and the problem with this perspective is that it harms the actual self-esteem of the individual that is being pushed against, because basically what religion seeks to do is to break you down emotionally and spiritually so that it can rebuild you up in the way that it wants you to be. So Christianity will tell you that you are a wretched sinner in need of salvation, so much so that Jesus Christ had to die on the cross for you. A blood sacrifice was necessary. And I remember one time I was evangelizing to one of my neighbors. I was a pastor at the time, and I remember we were talking about religion, talking about Jesus. I was talking to him about God, sharing with him the gospel. And I remember telling him, like, hey, like I was a sinner. I'm a sinner. I'm in need of salvation. And he looked at me and he goes, tell me, Eddie, like, seriously, tell me about your sins. What have you actually done? Tell me about how sinful you are. And I had to really think. I was like, I mean, there's that one time I took a pen from the bank. I didn't return it. I'm naming out all these little petty little things that I've done. And I realized, yeah, those weren't really that bad, were they? But religion has made it out to be where you are this horrible person and that you must be rescued by a God by doing a certain step of certain activities, having certain beliefs. And if you will only conform to the message that's being presented to you, then you can be rescued from your horrible sinful nature. And you can see how that destroys the self-esteem of people. I mean, especially young people, young children when they're coming up. One they're going to vacation Bible schools, they're going to Sunday school, they're going to church, and they're constantly being told that you are broken and need to be fixed. And the religion is the only way that can fix you. And that message, I could see that as being very harmful to many people. The next area, the fifth area where atheists win is in health. Believe it or not. So atheists believe in science and would not stand in the way of medical treatments on religious grounds. While there have been studies that have shown the mental and physical health benefits of being a believer, there have also been recent studies that showed no significant difference in the mental health of the religious and non-religious people. In fact, it can be argued that having strong self-esteem and better economic status would make atheists more healthy. So, I'm going to try to pull up some of these studies here. See if we can get into this. Religiousness has frequently been brought to be associated with higher reported mental health levels than those found in individuals lower in the reported religiousness. Um, so this is actually cited a lot for people. Let's see if I can make this a little bigger. Theists and Christians and stuff like to point to these studies that say, oh, yeah, people who are religious are happier. Okay. And in some ways, well, yeah, of course, in some ways I can see that, because guess what? If you're not constantly being persecuted for your beliefs, if you're not constantly being criticized for your lack of belief, if you're not constantly being pushed out of society, rejected, ignored, uh, maligned, and talked about, yes, you are going to be happier, right? But so this study goes on to say these results have often been inferred by scholars to mean that secular groups have poor levels of mental health, despite the secular populations have rarely been included in the studies. And the thing about this that's interesting to me is I actually agree with this. There's actually been a lot of studies where people who have been disconnected from meaningful community, who have been socially isolated, have lower incidence of health outcomes, are more obese, have higher levels of depression, suicide, these kinds of things. But what's important to notice here is that's regardless of the type of community you're getting excluded from. It's not just the religion that provides these benefits. It's the sense of meaning and connection. And on this level, I actually agree. People who are religious tend to have better social networks. And this is a fact, right? This has nothing to do with whether or not religion is true, whether or not religion is accurate, or whether or not religion even actually helps in your health. But it is true that if you are connected socially to a group of people who share similar values, you are going to be overall happier and healthier. And this study goes in to say that it shows no significant difference in the mental health of religious people and non-religious people. Like I said before, when you actually dive into the actual numbers, it turns out that the higher self-esteem and better economic status actually help offset these problems of lack of meaningful community that get presented by these studies. So when it comes down to it, yes, there are some downsides to being atheist because you are going to be socially isolated. You are going to be maligned by people in your city or your state or your town or your apartment complex, right? But the difference in mental health, because you're not constantly tearing yourself down emotionally and turning yourself into this horrible person who needs salvation, combined with increased success financially and professionally, means that it tends to offset some of these differences. Not entirely. Now, there is a strong case to be made for the importance of social connectedness. And I've made this case several times. I actually made a video. I think it was something like, "Is it possible to have meaningful community without religion?" And this is an issue that I think, as atheists, we do need to become more aware of. And I think that as atheists and non-religious people, we tend to quickly dismiss the influence and effectiveness of meaningful value-based community like church is for people. Yes, for many atheists, church represents just this concept of like control and represents this concept of like group thinking, and I get all that. But we also forget about the meaningful impact that religious organizations have, not only on individuals and families, but also communities, states, and in the entire world. Whether or not we like it or not as atheists, religion is still the greatest source for good on this planet. And when I say that with quotations, source for good, and I'll break that down why I say that. The fact is, religious symbolism and religiosity is steeped in basically every hospital that you go to, every you know every every soup kitchen, all these different things, all these things that help the homeless people, that help all these things. Most of them have big crucifixes on them. They have church names. They have all these things. The problem is atheism, while it may be better for you overall, for mental health, professional lifestyle, right now we have an image problem as atheists. The image, because we don't have a symbol, we don't have popes, and we don't have hierarchies, and we don't have all these different things. So while atheists may be amazing people and atheists may be doing a lot of amazing things, we don't get a lot of recognition in it, right? Because we don't have that connectedness that religious institutions have. So there is an image problem that we have to work on. There are some real issues, because it is true, having meaningful community in life is incredibly important for your overall happiness and well-being and health. You know, it does get offset by the fact that we have higher self-esteem and we have higher efficiency at work, and we have better experiences when it comes into promotions and this type of stuff. We can make those things happen, but we have to overcome a whole lot to make that happen. Because let's be real here. being part of a good religious community in your area is extremely powerful. I personally know atheists who still go to church just simply because of the connection that they get from going to church. The friendships they have. In fact, like I said before, I'm pretty confident 99% of the people on this planet are actually atheists. But the problem is atheism just isn't cool enough for them to admit that they are. So they would rather um, trick other people in their lives, and including themselves, into believing that they are theists or they are Christians or whatever the flavor of their local area happens to be, and they get to reap all those benefits. They have the meaningful community, they have the connections. And let's face facts. If you've never experienced a good church or a good religious experience, you may not understand this, but the fact is, everything is easier when you're part of a really good church community. You want to start a business? Great. You got a bunch of people around you who will be happy to be your customers to help support you. You want to start, you need a babysitter. You got tons of babysitters to choose from. You need a date. You got tons of opportunity in your the singles ministry or whatever it is in your church, and all the different things you're involved with, the worship ministry or the whatever those ministries are. You have a pool of people who you're connecting with, and it's super easy to get dates. It's super easy to make friends. It's super easy to do all these things because you're connected in a meaningful community. So there are some things when it comes to that we do need to work on as well. The sixth area where atheists tend, or the fifth area, is progress. And this is actually super critical. Atheists tend to value scientific discovery. I gotta sneeze. All right, excuse me. Um, Atheists believe in so atheists tend to value scientific discovery more and are less likely to stand in the way of scientific progress, as has often happened for religious reasons. An atheistic society is more rational and science oriented. And this is absolutely true. I mean, you can see this in a lot of different cases. A perfect case would be like vaccines. Vaccines have effectively eradicated most diseases that we have, right? Give you a perfect example. When I was growing up, everyone got chickenpox. Everyone. It was kind of like a rite of passage. People would do chickenpox parties, so the kids would get infected and go ahead and get it out of the way, right? Uh, and along comes science and says, "Hey, There's a way we can eradicate this illness through this vaccine." And the vaccine was implemented, and lo and behold, just as predicted, chickenpox basically disappeared. Okay. That only happens through progress that is provided through the rational thinking of secular individuals. Like I said, most people are probably atheists deep down inside. Most people, I don't buy into the idea that you can be a Christian or be religious and still do bad things. If you believe there's a God watching you 24/7, how in the world can you continue doing bad things? It doesn't make any sense. So the truth is, most people are atheists. Just many people can't come to say it out loud, can't come to accept it internally. So they live a life that's not authentic. And it affects other areas, progress. You know, the vaccines that we have right now, they're only they were only possible because fetal tissue was some type of fetal tissue was used in the original conception of and testing. In fact, most medications you take today had been tested against fetal tissue somewhere along the lines. So without secular people who value secular values and such, we wouldn't have a lot of the progress that we have. I mean, what has religion ever done that's actually advanced society and advanced us as a species? And notice I ask you, what was religion done? I know religion is all over buildings. Religion is all over. There's a big hospital down the road from my house. It's a provided by the Seventh Day Adventists. They've got Jesus pictures all over the walls. They've got all these things. But what has religion actually ever done to actually progress humanity? As far as I can tell, all religion has ever done is stifle humanity. And I'm trying to remember where it was. It was graph showing um, uh, growth in science except Middle Ages religion. Let's see if I can find this real quick. Um, yeah, so take a look at this graph. I love it. So this is a graph that shows the actual let's see if I can flip the screen here. This graph here shows advancement in scientific thinking, right? So science is growing, knowledge is growing. Here comes religion. Christian Dark Ages, right? This is what religion does. It stifles human growth. We would be exploring the galaxy by now. We may have cured death by now, right? But religion comes along and tries to stifle it. What has religion actually ever done that's actually made your life better? Now, you may point to different things like church, you may point to different ministries. The truth is, though, that's not religion. Those are people who did those things. It's not religion. So yeah, progress is a result of secularism, of atheism. The sixth area where atheists do it better is health. Atheists believe in science and would not stand in the way of medical treatments on religious grounds. While there have been studies that have shown that mental and physical health benefits of being a believer, there have been recent studies that show no significant difference in the mental health of religious people. In fact, it can be argued that having a strong self-esteem and better economic status. Okay, so the next one is the seventh one is peacefulness. Atheists do not start wars or commit acts of terrorism for religious reasons, just to prove their deity is the correct one. On the other hand, Marxist, Leninist, atheism at the core of communism has certainly given atheism a bad name, but it's not necessarily an argument that it was atheism itself that led to the repressions and killings. There were complex historical, social, and economic reasons for that. Atheists tend to not kill others for the sake of atheism. Think about this. You're never going to hear somebody killing another person in the name of atheism. What would that even be about? Like what cause would that what would that accomplish? If you're an atheist, you believe that this life is the only life you have, right? So you're not going to kill somebody for the sake of your beliefs. There is nothing to kill somebody over. Atheism only deals with one subject, which is your belief as to whether or not a God exists, right? Now, there may come a time where somebody has a religious belief that is intending to use that religious belief to harm you. Then you may defend yourself in that process. But you're never going to hear of atheists going out and killing a bunch of people and then killing themselves in the name of atheism, right? This doesn't happen. Once again, I go back to the original study that I showed you earlier, which is that the more atheistic a society is, the happier the people are in it. And I don't think this is an accident. This is not just correlation. I think there's a direct causal link here. As an atheist, I want my life to be as pleasant as possible. This may be the only life I have. So why do I want to fill it up with strife and trying to convert people or hurt people or do these things? It doesn't make any sense. Even this show right here is a response to an atheistic world that's trying to push a theistic perspective on all of us. I long for the day where a show like this isn't even required, isn't even necessary. Like, why do we even have a word called atheism? We don't have a word for people who don't believe in Santa Claus. We don't have a word for people who don't believe in the Easter Bunny, right? But yeah, we have to have this word atheism for people who don't believe in God or atheists. I'm looking forward to a day where this is a non-issue. Where people are like, "You're an atheist? Of course you are. We all are." I mean, we all were. We were all born atheists, so it doesn't make any sense why this is even a thing now. The eighth reason why atheists do it better is skepticism. Atheists are generally skeptical and tend to look at issues from a rational, often scientific standpoint and demands proof. For an atheist, elements of reality are observable and can be tested. This may sound very dry, but I assure you it's not. Because this not only applies to, there's a saying that says, if you're willing to believe something based on faith, then you would be able to believe anything, because faith is what you use when you don't have evidence. See, if you have evidence, you don't need to use faith. See, so the thing is, this doesn't just stop at religion. This actually carries on to other parts of your life too. This is how people get into abusive relationships. The person tells you they love you, they tell you they care for you, but their actions speak differently. And if you're not a person who values uh, observable, independent evidence that can be tested, you'll believe anything, right? So this goes into way deeper than just religion, just politics or whatever. This gets into the heart of our lives. How do you know what is true? How do you know what to believe? Well, if you start with the foundation of faith, you automatically are starting off on a foundation that's not reliably going to lead you to accurate conclusions. So yeah, atheists do this better. Atheists are skeptical. And you know, atheists can understand skepticism more. If you start from the foundation that the world is rational and that what can be known can be shown, well, then it affects all the other areas of your life too. All of a sudden, you start looking at people and situations and things differently, because now you start seeing a thread. And that thread is that which can be shown can be known. And if you can't show it, you don't know it. So you can tell me, for instance, hey, you love me, you want to build a relationship with me. But until I see the evidence of that, I'm not going to believe it. You can tell me, hey, I'm going to have your best interest if you elect me. But if I haven't seen evidence of that, I'm not going to believe it. Right. Atheism doesn't necessarily mean that you have skepticism. By the way, I want to point this out too. There are people who are atheists for all kinds of different reasons. Some people are atheists and they still believe in genies, or they believe in magic crystals, or they believe in all these things. Being an atheist doesn't mean that you are automatically a skeptical person. Hell, babies are technically born as atheists. Atheism doesn't necessarily have anything to do with skepticism, but it tends to a person who an adult who is an atheist tends to have arrived at that position because they value truth, and they value a desire for pursuing the truth and learning about the truth, and actually applying uh, principles to actually learn those things. The ninth way atheists do it better is social issues. Atheists tend to be very involved in social justice issues. They do not believe in some higher power in order to they could have preordained a human's lot in life. Everything is of this material universe and can be improved upon. Where will we be at if religion ruled the world? Well, we can look back at when they did rule the world. What was life like? Well, we know that instead of actually treating people's mental conditions, people would pray for people. Because for a long time, and I know a lot of people have a hard time understanding this, but a long time before microgerm theory of disease was ever created, people thought that sickness was the result of demons, of evil spirits. They believed that when you were sick, or if you had a mental disorder or something like this, that they believed that it was a demon that was controlling you, that was possessing you. So they would try to pray it away, right? And people continue doing this even after medical intervention has been established. We just saw these parents a couple of years ago. These parents had their daughter; she had diabetes. Instead of treating the diabetes, they were told to just pray for her, and that's what they did. They just prayed for her over and over again through She ended up having to go to the hospital, then brought her back home. Got in the hospital because she almost died, brought her back home. Still did not give her medical intervention. Guys, diabetes is a perfectly treatable and manageable disease. But if you believe that there is a God out there who is answering your prayers, and that these are not actual diseases, they're just evil spirits, it's going to cause you to make decisions that are different. When you believe that there are no gods that are coming to rescue us and save us, guess what? The only people who can save us is yourself. And guys, ladies and gentlemen, I want to present to you this idea that there is no God out there who's coming to help you or rescue you from your problem. That there is no magic cure that's going to fix your issues. No, it's going to be the hard work and dedication of yourself and other humans. Human hands solve human problems. And the more of an atheist you are, the more you come to accept that. And then finally, the 10th thing is better sex. It wouldn't be a worthwhile list if I didn't talk about sex, right? There have been studies that showed atheists having better sex lives than religious people. And I'm going to pull up a couple of those studies right now. Let's see if I can flip this real quick. So if we look at this, atheists have best sex lives, claims psychologists, and I can attest to this. Mormons and Baptists say their sex lives improved after leaving their churches. Of course, if you believe that there, once again, get back to this. If you believe on any level that there is this deity out there who is watching you at all times, who's with you at all times, well, when you're getting down and dirty, that deity is there watching you. That's got to be in your head on some level. Even if you don't totally believe it, on some level, you're going to be thinking about this. How weird is that? Strange, isn't it? So, guilt about sex is certainly a strong feature of some of the world's religions and the political discourse they generate, particularly in the US. There are also studies out there that show a greater satisfaction with sex amongst believers, but it is also not something that they should really focus on and discuss according to religious tenets. It's hard to know where their responses are coming from. This says here, Daryl Ray, raised a fundamentalist Christian in Topeka, Kansas, shed a heavy cloak of guilt surrounding sex after he left the church in the late 70s, and whatever his experience was reflected of that of others. He's wrote several books, and in this survey, Sex and Secularism, which is publicized last week, Ray drew a direct correlation between guilt and sexual behavior. Not surprising, but he also learned about the guilt eventually subsides. We find guilt is a pretty big thing. Atheists, he concluded, had the best sex of all. They can speak with some authority, he said. They were raised in very secular homes. Yeah, when you break away from your religious foundations, you're going to find that everything tastes, wine tastes better, food tastes better, sex is better, because now you don't have to it's very freeing when you don't have to consider someone else in all of your decision making. When you can actually think about, what do you want in your life? What sexual positions do you want to have sex in, and with whom do you want to have sex? So many people get stuck in a specific way of life because they've been told that's the way it's supposed to be. And you can never experience true happiness and satisfaction in your life if that's how you live your life. You have to get to a place where you are making your decisions for yourself, not for a church member, not for another family member, and certainly not for an invisible deity who is supposedly watching you 24/7. It's no surprise that when you break away from that mindset and you can finally free your mind to be able to think for yourself and focus on what you want, that you can actually learn to achieve satisfaction. And yes, even the sex gets better. Now, I do want to say, I want to just say this, does Do these reasons mean that you should abandon your faith? Well, I mean, you're going to have to make that call. But being an atheist needs not carry any negative stigma in a world dominated by believers today. I think as professor of psychology Benjamin Bite, um, who's profiled a likely atheist to be this person. He says we can say that atheists show themselves to be less authoritarian and suggestible, less dogmatic, less prejudiced, more tolerant of others, law-abiding, compassionate, conscientious, and well-educated. They are of high intelligence, and many are committed to the intellectual and scholarly life. Honestly, that sounds like a pretty good person to me. Look, eventually, being a non-believer will eventually become a norm in this world today. And this is the facts. The religiously unaffiliated population, including all of its constituent subgroups, has grown rapidly as a share of the overall US population. Remember, the share of self-identified atheists has nearly doubled in size since 2007, from 1.6 to 3.1. Agnostics have grown from 2.4 to 4%, and those who describe themselves as religion as nothing in particular have swelled from 12 to 15. And overall, the religious nuns have grown from 16 to 22.8 at the time that I pull up this article. Look, ladies and gentlemen, the case is clear. Atheism wins. If you want to have a happy life, you gotta shed the things of your childhood, the things of the infancy of our species. I get it. You want to believe in a God. You want to believe that there is something out there. Being an atheist doesn't mean you have to know that to being an atheist does not mean that you have to reject all those things. Being an atheist doesn't mean that you have to say there are no gods. All being an atheist is someone who says I currently don't believe. And I don't believe because there's no evidence for it. And that's really the only case that's being made here. I think the case is clear. If you want to have a happier life, overall, become an atheist. Will it be easy? No, because you will be rejected by your family, by your friends, by society. You will have a harder time starting a business and being successful. But what the peace and satisfaction you feel inside of being an honest person, being a person who's committed to the truth, and a person full of integrity in this way, even when it hurts, that's reward in itself. So I'll challenge you all to keep it positively atheists out there. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Peace.